I spent most of the game controlling one square, and eventually my opponent just sacrificed a piece because he had no other play in the position. This is round 4 of the Rhode Island State Championship. I'm on my road. 2200. It's getting further and further away every day. Also on my road, playing all 50s. One of those things are easier than the other. What do you think? The time control is game in 45 plus 10. And I'm playing black against his published rating was 1600 during the tournament, but his live rating is 1580. But Class B, high Class C player. Well, let's see how I do here. I'm entering the round with 1 point out of 3, beating a 1600, losing to a 1500, 1000. I already know I'm going down, at least 20 elo for the tournament, and if I don't win this game, more like 40. So, anyways, so he plays d4, I play d5, and we both bring our knights out, and now he plays b3. I don't know what the actual name is, but for me, I just call this a b3 Colle system, because usually the opponent's going to go e3, because if they go e3 first, this is the Colle system, and they can go b3, but if they go b3 first, like it transposes to the same thing, so I don't know. Against b3, I like to play c5, develop my other knight, and I like to clarify the pawn structure. You don't need to, but a lot of times, if you bring your bishop out, like I've noticed that sometimes it gets a little bit dicey with them being able to take on c5. So I'm not 100% sure. Oh, also, this is a no engine recap until the very end. At the very end of this video, I'm going to run the game through the game review, but you're getting my unfiltered, unadulterated, uncensored thoughts. So whatever you want to make of that, could be a pro, could be a con, depending on who you are. But yeah, so he played. So I like to clarify the pawn structure by taking on d. That's what I'm trying to get at. And what I like about it is a couple of things. Well, one, I have this open c file, so my bishop is pointing over c2. I'm going to play rook c8 at some point, and I have the minority of pawns on the side, which can be good in the way of like creating weaknesses. Like I play the Caro-Kann, and this pawn structure with the half open c file is one that I get a lot. The main difference is that with a bishop on b2 and not on f4, the plans are a bit different. In my opinion, I think this bishop is worse than being on f4. So it's like an improved Caro-Kann. I'm not so sure about that. He plays bishop b5, which is already a mild surprise. Usually, what I see is bishop e2 or bishop d3. Bishop e5 is a little bit surprising because, I feel like most of the time white doesn't want to give up to trade their light square bishop for my knight. Usually not. It's a bit weird to me. Already, I was thinking about some tactics. For example, queen a5 check, hitting the bishop, so he has to block with the knight to guard his bishop. But now I play knight e4. Doesn't look like much because he can take with check. But after I take back, his knight is pinned to his king, and the only way for white to add another defender is to go queen d3. But now I go knight g3, defending my bishop, attacking the rook, and winning in exchange. Seems pretty good. So he can't add a defender. However, what he can do is just castle, hanging the knight, but not really, because he's going to go queen d2, pinning my knight to my queen, and because my queen's undefended, and now he's going to win it back. And so I was trying to evaluate this position, and I was like, okay, well, e6, and after bishop takes or queen takes, either one, I go back, and now here, and I was like, oh, his bishop's in front of his c-pawn. Maybe this is worth it. I was like, no, I just wasted 3 minutes trying to, getting his bishop on that square. He can spend 1 move moving it back. It's not actually worth it at all. So I thought for not 8 minutes on if I should play queen a5 and trying to evaluate these positions, as I'm bad at time management. And I decided, nope, not worth it. I'm going to play e6. Right? That's what I did. He castled. I developed my bishop to e7. I could go to d6. There's nothing wrong with d6. Although a lot of times, if he goes knight to e5, I want to give myself the option of taking with knight. Because, for example, let's say, I don't know, he goes here, I could take, he goes here. I don't have the option to take with the knight because it's a fork. Defended by his bishop on this. So, and also, a lot of times in this opening, white wants to play c4, and if I take and knight takes, this probably wouldn't happen in the game because he probably wants to take back with the pawn and not the knight. But if he does take back with the knight, he's hitting my bishop and controlling the e5 square even more. And, if play knight takes c4, I don't want him to hit the bishop. I don't want to trade my dark bishop for his knight. I castle. After bishop e7, I castle, and he plays knight h4, which is an interesting move. I mean, it's definitely common. Oh my goodness, Krogu, dude. Knocking over everything. Anyways, knight h4. Like, so, the downside of this move is that you're moving your knight to the edge of the board and forcing me to play a decent move. Because, if I didn't have bishop g4, then, that's a pretty good move because you're making me give up the bishop pair. However, I can play bishop g4, and what are you going to do? Are you going to play f3? Like, your knight is almost trapped if f3 is played. I play bishop d4, and if you go back, well, now you just wasted moves. Now you look dumb. That's worse than making a bad move. Looking dumb? Just kidding. Well, not really, though, because, psychologically, sometimes it's hard to admit that your move was bad. Like, if I went, rook e1 just to go back to f1, that's embarrassing. However, if rook e1 was a bad move, and you should go rook f1, you should go rook f1. Anyways, that's off topic. So, I go bishop d4, and he brings his bishop back. So already, he's kind of making some, retreating moves. He plays knight to the edge of the board, moves his bishop back, I trade. This knight is loose, and I think I maybe should have played knight e4 here. Attacking his knight. If he takes, then I take, attacking the pawn, and attacking the knight. And his knight is trapped. And so if he goes g3, I just take, and now I'm a pawn. He has a damaged structure. Life is good. However, probably if I did play knight e4, he'd probably bring his knight back, and life is okay for him. I would probably just take, and if queen takes, maybe I go queen b6, maybe I go bishop f6, maybe I go rook c1. And this does not look bad for me. It's probably an equalish position, but I think I think black has decent chances here. But I don't know if decent chances is the right word. I think it's I play rook c8. I'm saying I'm not gonna force you to play knight f3. Play it on your own time. And now he plays it. And now I decide I'm expecting him to play c4 at some point. That's really the main way to activate your pieces. However, with the light square bishops traded, black is definitely doing just fine here. Black has no issues. But I am expecting him to play c4, but he doesn't play. But I play a6 first, and now he plays a3. He doesn't play c4. I'm like, oh, okay. When I play b5, now it's really hard to play c4, and he still doesn't play. He plays rook c1. He still could play it right now. He could play c4, and if takes, I was thinking about maybe taking or playing 6, but if queen b6 and rook b1, I don't know. So I could also just take and just play against the isolated pawn, play knight d5, bishop f6, and just play against the isolated pawn, which that's probably what he didn't like. His bishop is still bad behind his own pawn, and I can control the open file pretty well. He has his isolated pawn, so that's probably why he didn't play it. But if you don't play, what else do you have? What else do you have if you don't play c4? He plays rook c1. I control c4 more. He plays knight e4. I play queen b6. I'm going to double up my rooks on the half open c file to control c4 more, and also just control attack c2 and potentially break through on the queen side. He plays knight df3, centralizing his knight, reinforcing his knight on e5, and I play rook c7. He plays rook e1. I play rook c8, and he attacks my pawn on 7. So far, I've had a pretty simple plan. I'm going to gain control of the file and control c4 a lot. Meanwhile, he has moved his knights over to the king side, trying to generate something. Well, he's attacking f7. F7 is heavy. I move my bishop back to guard it with my rook. Now he plays knight 4, removing a defender of my king. However, he's wasting a lot of time. Now after knight takes and queen takes, now this pawn is hanging. But is it really? If I take this pawn, it looks a little bit dicey here. Queen h5. Queen h5 attacks the pawn and threatens mate. and it just doesn't look that pleasant. For example, actually, let's actually change this up. Let's say I take the rook instead, and then play queen 5, and now it's really scary. I'm threatening on h7, and I'm threatening to take on f7 and take on f8. For example, yeah, I've just lost. I can just mate no matter what. I'm trying to think if I can stop mate anyway. Like, for example, just to show it, like this is just mate. So, yeah, so, that pawn is not free, and that's probably his idea. His idea was, my knight and queen are really meditating. Queen 5 is a huge threat, especially if you take on c2. But I don't take on h2, or on c2, I play h6 instead, kicking away the knight. If you go knight f3, then c2 is really hanging. So you kind of have to go all in at this point, and he does. He takes on e6, sacrificing his knight for two pawns, and he's hoping to win a third pawn. But I'm able to block the rook's attack with my own rook, and now he centralizes his other rook to the open file. Now I bring my queen back. I want to, so I'm up material. How do I want to convert this? I want to force trades. However, if I get too trade happy, I could make my life harder. Maybe I'm not losing or drawing, but I make my life harder. For example, if I take, he takes back. If I go here, rook e8. This might not be an issue, but it's kind of annoying. His rook is really active. His queen is really active. My knight is stuck on the edge of the board. His rook's pinning my bishop to my king. It's just not nice. Like, I could probably just go rook here, for example, and I'm probably just doing just fine. However, why do this when I don't have to? In this scenario, queen f5 looks really dangerous, attacking my bishop on f8, attacking the pawn on d5. I don't even know what to do. Like, if I go here, then I lose this check, but it's probably just fine still because I'm up. Well, because I have a piece for a piece for the pawn. So instead of doing that, I go queen d8. So now, if it was my move again, let's say he plays a4 or something like that, I can take, and then I play rook c6 guarded by my knight, and now he doesn't have any rook e8. So I force more trades. And also, I could potentially think about taking on e6 and playing queen d7 to pin the rook to the queen as well, because the queen's undefended, but that's less likely than the other parts. So he plays bishop c1. So now if I take on e6 and play rook c6, well, now he can potentially just take on h6, and life doesn't look good, because if I take his rook, then this all comes with check, and now he won his pawn. I might still be okay, but I might also just not good. My knight on the edge of the board is really bad, and it's kind of stuck right now. That's why after bishop c1, I played king h8 just to get out of the pin, out of the queen's pin of the pawn to my king. And now he plays bishop f4, hoping to centralize his bishop potentially. Also, this move also sets up a pin. If bishop e5 is played, and his rook isn't hanging, then he can go rook h6 check, because the pawn's pinned by the bishop. So that's kind of scary. But after bishop 4, I trade, and I play rook c6. And yeah, it's not looking so good. I mean, if he takes here and plays bishop e5, well, firstly, I could just take. And this just doesn't look good. You're not going to, create any counterplay this way. So he moves his rook back to e3. He moves his rook back to e3. And now I take on c2. Because now I'm threatening back rank checkmate. And also, I'm being aggressive too. I'm attacking on f2. And he moves rook h3, potentially to sacrifice his rook, open my king up, and defend against back rank checkmate with the bishop guarding c1. And now I go queen f6 here. What's interesting, it looks kind of scary because I sacrifice his rook to then win my queen, but then I would blunder back rank checkmate. There's two games I won were because of back rank checkmate. If back rank checkmate didn't exist, I'd be like 1400 or something. But I play queen f6, and he doesn't see the threat of the fact that his bishop is pinned, unless he goes bishop g3 or bishop e3, because he plays bishop g5 and blunders 2. After queen takes f7, f2, he resigns. So another pretty straightforward game. I think my opponent just felt the pressure and had to go for all in on the attack. When, but it's easy for me to say that in hindsight. But yeah, I mean, like if I took on c2 earlier in the game, like if I took on c2 in this position, then yeah, I'm just dead lost. However, I didn't do that, so I ended up winning. So that's that. I'm going to end it here. I'm really tired, so I'm gonna call it a day. I'm gonna hit the game review, and yeah, I'm gonna play in California next.